Our political correspondent, Katherine Forster, is salivating at what's in store today. Give us the latest, Katherine.
So, a huge moment for King Charles, obviously the first King's speech for 70 years, and a huge moment for the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. He's obviously been Prime Minister for over a year, but this is his first chance to lay out all the laws that he would like to get through. And bear in mind, there's got to be an election by the end of January next year at the latest, end of January 2025 at the latest. This is his last chance, if you like. This is his big moment, but I'm not sure how exciting the contents of this speech is actually going to be.
Well, let's talk about some of the content. We talked a little bit yesterday about these new oil and gas licences, which will be interesting in and of itself, and lots of the papers picking up on this because the Green King is going to have to rip up the Green agenda, essentially, in Parliament today. But some of the other stuff centred around law and order is about tougher sentencing when it comes to the worst kinds of murders and rapes.
Yes, that's right. So there's about 20 bills, of which about 5 are being carried over that they didn't get time to get through last time, and a big focus on basically dividing lines with Labour. This is really about trying to win the next election. So huge focus on crime and justice, a huge focus on energy security. So in terms of crime, things like forcing convicted criminals to attend their sentencing. There was outrage, wasn't there, when Lucy Letby refused earlier in the year to show. That's been a habit that a number of killers now have said that, no, they're not going to show up. So that's going to be changed to make sure that they are physically there. Things like rapists, who are currently sometimes allowed out early, they'll have to serve their full sentence. Also, things like repeated burglars, shoplifting, etc., repeated offenders will get sent to jail. 20,000 new prison places, potentially. And also, police will no longer need a search warrant necessarily to enter a property if they believe there's stolen goods, if they have sufficient evidence. So the government is very keen to be seen to getting tough on law and order. And the other big one really is energy security. We saw yesterday, didn't we, Rishi Sunak, since the Uxbridge by-election that they won very surprisingly on an anti-ultra-low emission zone ticket. The government have rowed back on a lot of these green policies, saying, yes, we want to get to net zero, but in a more sustainable, in a more realistic way that's not going to cost people lots of money. So we've seen now they want to have annual licensing for new oil and gas drilling in the North Sea. That was announced yesterday. That's a really clear dividing line with Labour, who are sort of tying themselves in knots a little bit now over the approach to take, because up until Uxbridge, both parties were pretty much aligned on this. Other bills too, most notably Rishi Sunak's announcement, something very personal to him, that he basically wants to ban smoking. So if you're age 14 now, it will become illegal for you to ever buy a cigarette. Also on housing, phasing out of leasehold on new houses, not on flats, I understand. Media bill, football regulation, lots more. But will it be enough to change the Conservative Party's fortune?
So why is the smoking thing so personal to Rishi Sunak? Was he a teenage smoker? Do we know anything about his history in that?
I very much doubt, although I can't be certain that Rishi Sunak has ever smoked, but this has come from him, like the desire to basically reform A-levels. This is something that he feels very strongly about. He's obviously got young daughters. He feels it's been done, I think, in New Zealand. The smoking costs the NHS vast amounts of money, and the idea is he thinks to phase it out. I have to say it's quite popular, although there's plenty of people on the right of the Conservative Party that think, well, this is just nanny state, this is crazy. But so we'll have all the pomp and circumstance. They'll start out by looking for gunpowder, as they do every year. They'll take an MP hostage in Buckingham Palace until the King is safely returned. And then they'll spend 5 days, it's called a humble address, basically debating all of these laws. and then it will get voted through. I mean, to be honest, that's the technicality.
Well, they won't be able to do anything if Black Rod doesn't knock on that door 3 times and it's opened up. We go to David Leakey. David is a former usher off the Black Rod, and we say, so what happens to you now, David? Do you go into retirement, or once a Black Rod, always a Black Rod?
I think once you've been Black Rod, you're one of the interesting things about being Black Rod is that nobody in Parliament knows your name. I remember sitting in a loo, in the peers' loos once, and 2 peers came in to have a pee, and they were talking about me, and they'd asked me to a committee meeting, and when they'd finished, they said, oh yes, that was a good idea to get Black Rod to come to this committee meeting. And when they'd finished and walked out, one of them said to the other, do you know what Black Rod's name is? So for many people, I meet them on the tube travelling through London, peers and MPs, and they say, oh, hello, Black Rod. So once you're Black Rod, you're always Black Rod. But but your retirement now, nothing to do with it now.
And for those who aren't familiar with Black Rod, just tell us a little bit about what you have to wear, because it's quite a costume, isn't it? And does this just come out once a year, or for other big ceremonial events within Parliament?
So here's the key thing. The state opening of Parliament is Parliament's annual festival. We all have a birthday, universities have a graduation day, schools have prize giving day once a year. Parliament has state opening, and it usually happens just once a year. And everybody gets dressed up. Now, I say everybody gets dressed up. The peers get dressed in their ermine robes, and they only do it once a year. But Black Rod, and you can see in the pictures here, this was me when I was doing it, Black Rod gets dressed like this every day of the year, because every day there is a short ceremony at the beginning and end of a session, same in the House of Commons, where the Black Rod, or in the House of Commons, the Sergeant at Arms, processes in at the start of proceedings, and it is the formality of the day. And Black Rod, while Parliament is sitting, is always in uniform, like that. Slight embellishments, not wearing medals or the white jabot, but wearing the silk stockings, and if you look down at the feet, the buckled slippers, and the morning coat, and the breeches with the diamante buckles. If you want to be Black Rod, but you don't like wearing that, then don't apply for the job. But the job's open to anyone who wants to apply. Most people don't know what Black Rod does for the rest of the year when he's not, or she, it's Sarah Clark now, of course, but when Black Rod's not conducting ceremonial events, people wonder what Black Rods do. And they have many, many other functions. And I suppose if you wanted it in a word, I suppose you could describe it as, I mean, this is very, very broad brush. You could describe it as being the chief of operations. And you see there in the picture there, myself walking with John Bercow, who was Speaker at the time. David Cameron was the Prime Minister. The picture here is the peers in the House of Lords. And this is the picture that always gets published. Here are the peers in the House of Lords. And people think from these pictures that peers wear these robes every day. They don't. They're just like the House of Commons. They come in a business suit or business attire every day. So it's perfectly normal most days. But this one day is a festival dress-up day.
Yeah, but why, David, why do you knock the door 3 times?
So when Parliament was set up, we're going back in 500-600 years of history now. When Parliament was set up, one of the reasons it was set up was to start off democracy in this country, and it was to make sure that Parliament, rather than the King, exercised authority over taxation. That's how it started, and that was the reason behind it, Parliament. And the King's authority, therefore, didn't run within the House of Commons, the democratically elected chamber. And there were several rulings down the centuries which confirmed that the King had no right to, or the sovereign had no right to enter the House of Commons. But the King's messenger can. So at the state opening of Parliament Day, Black Rod goes down as the sovereign's messenger to summon the MPs. But the MPs, in a demonstration of their political independence of the Crown, slammed the door in the face of Blackrod as an exercise, as a demonstration of that independence, political independence of the Crown. And so that's why the door gets slammed. Blackrod knocks and is then admitted. You may wonder why, when before Blackrod is admitted, having knocked, there is a cry from inside the door. The Sergeant-at-Arms looks through the little window and calls out, "It is Blackrod." And that's very important because 18th century, there were a couple of mishaps. Blackrod didn't go himself one day. Someone went in his place, and the House of Commons did not like that because he was not the authorised King's messenger. No. You may ask why Blackrod didn't go. The allegation is that he was drunk.
Oh dear!
Well, heaven forbid. Well, we hope today's one isn't drunk and does turn up. David, absolutely fascinating.
Really
listening
enjoyed
to you.
that.